What's up, folks? Welcome back to the stream. It's Tuesday. We're getting tactical today. A little bit earlier this time around than our normally scheduled Tactical Tuesday streams because I have a game scheduled later today. So I had to push it back an hour or so just to be able to make room for that. That's going to be over on Twitch. Just probably, depending on when we finish this live stream, probably just after I finish over here. I did make sure, hopefully my bot's online. I did make sure, I believe my Twitch command is working on this thing. Although, it doesn't say my bot's online, so my bot might be turned off. I don't know, chat. It's all thing. There it goes. Welcome in, robot. The new meta's 240 guardsmen. So, you say that, and then people win GTs with fucking 100 guardsmen, and then everyone goes, oh, no, that's not real Imperial Guard. Get out of here. It's so, we gotta do a deep dive into the whole Imperial Guard Reddit situation because it's fucking hilarious. It has been a little difficult to get my normally scheduled streams online, of course, because we've had so much content for the T5S2 Invitational going down over the last couple of weeks. I do want to talk about, I think momentarily too, while people sort of percolate into the chat here, about the streaming schedule moving forward. I'm not 100% sure that I will stick. So previously I've done a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday stream. Monday, we usually do, like meta recaps from the previous weekend. Tuesday, we typically do more focused stuff, list reviews and things like that. And then Wednesday, we do like silly content. I don't 100% know if I will continue with the exact same schedule. Last week was kind of a wake-up call for me. I think we had gotten off the back of a ton of live streaming on the previous Sunday, and then I did the Tuesday or the Monday morning video, and I ended up like rocking in to the live streams with like 3 hours of sleep, and it was probably the worst content I've ever like done in a really long time. I feel really bad about it. Last week's Monday streams were really bad, so I don't know if the Monday streams will continue. Obviously, I wasn't live yesterday. I did have the Monday streams on my schedule, but I just had so much catching up to do from the weekend between like behind the scenes stuff and then also T5S2 things. And of course, coming off the Monday video, that it's just tougher to do the Monday live streams. So I don't 100% know if I'm going to continue to do the Monday live streams. I oftentimes will have to cancel them anyway if I'm doing travel for event coverage, which is about to rocket up. I think this fall I'm going to be out like constantly doing event coverage. So it's not like the perfect time frame for me to do live streams. So I don't know 100% if that's going to keep going. I'll have to sort of figure it out. Don't remind Reddit they were wrong about Purge being broken OP. Yeah, it was like, man, that was interesting. Like people, I think the people, I don't know. I think that there's a narrative that people are like, Purge is super broken and it's dumb. But I think that the reality was that Purge was easy, but it's not the most consistent scoring. And I mean, I got swept up in that a little bit. Like the narrative was on the initial release of the edition, it was like Purge was like everywhere. Everyone played fucking Purge. And I was like, man, some of these feel really strong. But when we play them out, you're like, it's fine. These are totally okay, I guess. For the most part, these are totally okay. And then in some cases you can kind of get into weird matchups where your opponent gets control over like what you can score, and it's a whole thing. So I don't know. It does feel like the priority assets was a little bit of the sleeper hit for sure once we understood how the mission format worked. But I always sort of understood people's excitement about Purge for being about the ease of the mission structure, because you have to do less to score. You have to think about it less than you do other dispositions, whereas other dispositions may have a complex series of parameters you have to fulfill. Purge is like, did you destroy people? I did? Okay, cool. Although, of course, in some cases it's less consistent, so we'll see. Did I see the massive gotcha done by the Salamanders player on Wargames Live over the weekend? I did not. I did not get an opportunity to watch any game serve this weekend. Do tell if it's an interesting thing. I do. I there might be some content coming later this week. I do do this pretty often if there's like funny drama in the background, and then I end up not making any content about it. What I might do is like go back to doing shorter videos covering situations like that on my second channel, where I don't like do as big, like heavily, scripted and researched video as I normally do. We'll see. I don't know. How about the 2120 Eldar list? Yeah, so we had a very long discussion with the TOs from, that was from Boise, and the 2120 Eldar list, I don't know exactly what the final the final resolution of that situation was. However, it was showcased to my satisfaction, at least, that is due to a bug in the app, in the 40K app, and it is very reasonable to assume that list was submitted by accident. Basically, to elucidate the situation, there was a list that was submitted that had 2 Warlock Covens or Warlock Conclaves in it. A Warlock Conclave inside a Guardian Squad, and it had a Warlock Conclave with Eldrad in it. There is, in some versions of the 40K app, and we'll actually look at a similar instance of this in one of the lists that I've picked out to talk about today. There is a way that you can get the 40K app, and I could not do it on my version, but I guess the TOs went back and they were able to replicate the problem, where if you attach the characters in a certain sequence, when you export the list, it just adds another Warlock Conclave into it. It's fucking weird, dude. It's because I think like part of the logic gets a little broken if you embed 3 units into a single unit. It typically wants to add 1 support, 1 leader, but once you add an attached leader into a joined unit, then a joined unit into a led unit, the app like kind of breaks a little bit, even though that's totally legal. So I don't know. I don't know what the final resolution of that was. Obviously, a list was submitted that said it had 2 Warlock Conclaves in it, but that's something that could... allegedly, the player didn't play with the 2 Warlock Conclaves. I don't know. I will throw a little bit of shade at the rest of the event. I spoke to several players from the event, and I said, hey, how many Warlock Conclaves did this person play? And they said, I don't even know what a fucking Warlock Conclave is. And I was like, you played against this person. I don't know why. He was like, he had a big unit, and then there were some other units. I was like, does nobody even pay attention to this game? No wonder these things always get like fly under the radar if nobody knows what their opponent's units do. There was also another situation that happened in that event specifically. We might talk about that if I do content on it, where a player went through a whole sequence, apparently didn't know literally anything about his opponent's units.
Donated $5 through Super Chat. Could we also talk about that Penitent Host GT list? I'm assuming he took it for the dispo.
Yes.
There's only 1 Penitent unit in the list, which is odd.
Yeah, the Penitent Host, you take for Purge the Foe because you're going to play a super duper limited unit count. I actually talked to Ash about that list over the weekend. She said, it's Ash in the Invitational is playing Adepta Sororitas. She said she's playing a very similar build, but she's playing Take and Hold because it's like a little bit more consistent. But the idea is that you're playing like a very attritional game plan. Instead of playing this peace trading game where you're playing sisters, you just send like little units at your opponent and then you kill one of their units, and then you generate miracle dice and you get passive value for the rest of your units. You basically just play bricks. It's just bricks. So it's like 5 units and it just runs at your opponent. And it compounds the speed quite a bit because Sacred Champions makes your Sacresants like fucking super fast. And then you also get Sister Repentia, who inside Penitent Host can also be super fast. So you end up having 2 units that can like instigate the fight with your opponent, and then the rest of your army is like just like 3 or 4 units that are just super hard to kill and do super like intense amount of damage if you're up close and personal. Kind of a cool build, honestly. I really like it. I think it's neat. It's so different than normal sisters, because normal sisters, you're like, oh, I got 4 combat squads of battle sisters everywhere. I have 10 dominions. I have fucking incendiants everywhere. I have sanctifiers. I have a bunch of utility canonesses, and you have like 20 units, and they're all just everywhere. And this list is like, nah, fuck it. It's all 10 Sacresants with -1 to hit and wound and regeneration and feel no pain. And then we just sit there and we hopefully we can do the best. You can do double advance and charge. Yeah, because there is one inside Penitent, right? You can get the one in Sacred Champions, and then I'm gonna fact check myself here. It is Lash of Guilt is the stratagem inside Penitent Host, where a Penitent unit, before you advance, you can pay for it to advance and charge. Annoyingly, it's in the movement phase. You do it before you advance, but you can auto 60 advance if you have Miracle Die, so it's not that bad. Plus, you also get the benefits from the Triumph of St. Catherine, so you're going extra distance, you're going extra speed on the advance, and then you also get another Sacresant unit that can also do that. You could potentially have the enhancement, Fervid Haste, I think it is, in that unit to also get +1 movement, so they are moving 7 plus D6 plus 1, and then 9 plus D6 plus 1, then the Sister Apentia squad could potentially be moving 11 plus D6 plus 1. If you choose +3 movement from the Penitent Host attachment ability, then you also give +2 movement from the Triumph. Then you also give the +1 to advance from the Triumph. They go fucking crazy speed. So you have basically two units can just like immediately Alpha Strike your opponent, based on the board state, of course. And then you just follow up with the rest. So you buy a lot of table space with those, and then you just like take the middle of the table. Pretty cool. It's pretty cool. But yeah, going back to the initial point, there were a lot of interesting situations that arose this weekend, and maybe it's like, I don't know, maybe it's a discussion that like we as a community need to have, but it seems like there were a lot of situations that arose because people just don't know what their opponent's army does. And I kind of hate to say it, but I do think that we do eventually crest a point where the culture, which is a very positive change for the community, because previously, I mean, I have the biggest video on my channel, biggest video I've ever made, is about people like dropping gotchas on people in OG 8th edition 40k, and I'm glad we're past that point, but we have, I think, maybe come full circle back around to the point that full knowledge is expected. And any form of rules ignorance that one player might have is treated as an indictment of the opponent. And I don't think that's fair. And I don't like it, if that makes sense. So it's like, oh, I'm going to use my stratagem that I have here that does a thing on my turn. And your opponent goes, oh, I didn't know you could do that. You shouldn't be able to. And you're like, I don't know what to fucking tell you. I have 6 stratagems. You can read them. Like, my list is not that complicated. And several times over the course of the weekend, people would be like, I just didn't know what was going on my opponent's list. I didn't know what his units were. I didn't know anything about what his army was doing. I was just playing my army. And then, of course, there were several instances over the course of the weekend where people were telling me about situations where they got into a situation, one player used an ability or had an ability on their unit, and then one player got salty because they didn't know that their opponent had that, even though it's just their fucking datasheet ability. You can read them. So I don't know. It's, I do think, in my opinion, and I think I might be in the minority here, I do think that game knowledge is a part of the skill of the game. I don't think it should be 100% of the skill of the game. I don't think you should, win or lose just based on the fact that you know the rules better than your opponent. But if my opponent has no fucking idea what my army does, I shouldn't be penalized for that. That's on them to understand. And it is sportsmanlike for me to tell them. But if I tell them and they either don't remember or they don't put the puzzle pieces together, that's not my fault, right? And I think that we have crested this point where it's like, oh, if you don't inform me of your entire game plan at the start of the turn, then I'm gonna be upset that you don't this happened. And it's silly. It's just silly. I don't know. The 2120 list got its placing back. Yeah, I'm have a discussion with the TOs because I was in contact with them yesterday. That's a lot of what I was doing yesterday was to talk about that. I don't know. I might try to get the player on in question because I think it's an interesting situation to talk about. kind of the danger of using the 40K app, I guess. It's also as the Games Workshop is trying to push the community to play using their bespoke tools, those tools need to not have these issues with them. And this issue is crazy. It just added a unit to a guy's list. That's fucking wild, dude. So yeah, I don't know. It's a whole thing. 553.50 for the time spent. Gotcha. Salamander player didn't at any point tell the other player he could hop out of a transport and shoot. If the transport was shot, the other player shoots the transport with some little pistol shots to trigger the hop out and shoot. The guy's really crappy. But that's like kind of what I'm talking about, right? Like, you've gone, especially because sometimes this happens and it like blows my fucking mind. And it's like we are 3-0 or 4-0 at a GT. And I don't know what Firestorm Assault Force is, or Forge Father Seekers, whatever. That's a meta list, right? That is like top, at least up until this, like last week. It was probably like top 3 or 4 list compositions of the game. I'm undefeated at a tournament, and I'm like playing for top placing, and my opponent, and like, I just have no fucking idea what my opponent's army does, and that's somehow their fault. Like, I don't know. You have to at some point take some culpability for your own knowledge of the game. I don't know, chat. I don't know what it is. What's even more confusing is when, 4-0s don't know the core rules. Yeah, that's like even worse for sure. If you're like, wait, that's how pile-in works? Like, brother, how did you get here? What are you doing? I have like I think back on this game with chagrin every once in a while, but I had a very like obnoxious game I played one time. Not that my opponent was obnoxious. He's actually a sweetheart. Like we're friends and he's a great guy, but I did play him in a tournament. He didn't play super often. He played, once a month or whatever. And he was playing 8th edition, like Space Marine Winter, pre-nerf Space Marines. And he was, so we got paired with him, and I think we were both 2-1. And we were playing for 3-1 or whatever. We were both had lost a game at this point. I lost another game I was salty about too. A very top ranked player who did in fact cheat in the game. Which I questioned him on at the time, but I didn't push him. And then I realized after the fact that I was right. Anyway, I'm not salty at all. But I played against this guy, and I was literally like, he was tabling me because he was playing pre-nerf Space Marines, and which were fucking wild, by the way. They had fucking either battle line intercessors for had fucking AP 3-2 damage weapons. It was like a regular intercessor that cost 15 points was shooting as hard as like a dedicated anti-tank unit. Crazy stuff. And he's like, I'm trying to kill his models, and they have like a billion overlapping defensive buffs. They're like -1 to be wounded if your strength characteristic is higher, and also have a 5+ field out pain, and then also get can pass damage or whatever. It's like a billion things. So I'm trying to kill like this unit. I leave it on a couple bottles. He's like, all right, well now I'm gonna fight. So what do I do? We pile in. He's like, okay, I pile in. So I move 3 inches. Like, yeah. He's like, okay. Can I go anywhere? Like, no, you have to go towards the closest model. Oh, okay. I go towards the closest model. Now, who can I target? Anyone in each of you. Just in your engagement range, you can target. Oh, okay. And I have to roll all these attacks separately. I was like, oh my God. I was teaching my opponent how to play the fight phase like he had never played before. And he's actively tabling me. I was like, sometimes rules knowledge cannot account for army power. I'm just saying. Sometimes your army's just really good. Yeah, it was transhuman physiology. It was the OG version. It was an unmodified wound roll of a 1 through 3 fails to wound. What's the stratagem? So you would go in with like strength 10, AP 4, fucking Thunderhammer or whatever, and they're like, you wound on force. You're like, cool. Insane, dude. Oh, man.
At Bucket of Steel Sybil donated $6.99 through Super Chat. Heyo Trevi. I'm looking to bring Imperial Fists in a GT and I'm having doubts about my list. When you have time, could you take a look?
Absolutely. We haven't even jumped in here, and we could talk about it. Was it Iron Hands? It was Iron Hands. Yeah, if you DM me the list, I will have to pull it up. What's my opinion on where GSC stands? I think they are okay. It seems to me. I think that good players are going to do great things with them. But I think that they play into like asymmetric missions really well because they can play like reconnaissance or whatever very easily. But I don't think that they're the most consistent army ever right now, for sure. You have DM'd me the list. Well, hope it shows up. I do not seem to have it. Had to fight Sternguard with Librarian for the first time on Friday. That's ridiculous. Yeah, for sure. At least it doesn't do 5-up critical devastating wounds, which is pretty good. You can slide into my DMs. I'm not exactly hard to find. I don't make my my Discord difficult to get into. Bucket, I don't seem to have your DM, so I'll take a peek with it on in a sec. Yeah, I'm in my DMs. I don't have any recents. And we have a conversation ongoing, unless it like somehow didn't notify me. Oh, it did. That's exactly what happened. I don't know. I don't understand. Okay, that was weird. It just didn't pop up for me. All right, let me put this into a document, and then we'll take a peek, and then we can hop into some lists. Yeah, it did definitely send, but it didn't go to the top on Discord. I don't know why. So I had to manually search for your name, and then it showed up. All right, here we go. So we're playing Ceramite Sentinels. Take a peek. That's rerolls when you're on a terrain feature, which I think is pretty good these days. Oh, hello. Reroll once the hit and wound when you're within a terrain feature. You are entrenched if you are within a terrain feature and did not move more than 3 inches. I like that they actually they made that the same as heavy. It actually kind of makes the mechanic a bit easier to parse. Lysander, the big Terminator assault squad. Seems good. So he gives -1 to wound. Do we have synergies with Terminators? We can double plus OC, so we can push them to OC3. Priority strike. Infantry or mounted can reroll wounds against character, monster, vehicle. Fucking sick. Okay. That's very good for an entire unit that has devastating wounds. And then fight on death, which is obviously good. Lethal or sustained hits in range. If you are entrenched, you gain both. Also good. Also, after your opponent shoots you, you can move. All right, sweet. So we have a good rapid ingress threat in the center of the battlefild. Apothecary Biologus, the heavy intercessor squad. Teach Marine with defensive mastery. Plus Torgaradon. Is Torgaradon supposed to be in the aggressor squad here? It looks like he has been put by himself, which I imagine is not correct. Although Torgaradon is fucking sick. He gives you ignore cover. Plus, he also hits like an absolute truck against big stuff. Yeah, he's supposed to be in the aggressors. All right, sweet. Good to know. Aggressor side with Boltstorm Gauntlets. Then, of course, we can give them sustained hits, which is cool. Land Reader Redembler. Double Repulsor Executioner, Strike Squad, 1 Navigator to hold down the back line. What's your disposition? Take and hold. Okay. I think I like it. I guess the one part that I'm not sure about is the heavy intercessors. I think they are probably pretty good in take and hold because you do have to just like sit on an objective for a really long time. What does the enhancement do? Oh my god, I wish this dumb app would remember my spot. What is the purpose of a back button if it doesn't actually go back? You can fall back, action, and shoot. Okay, that's not too bad. And then that unit's gonna hit, I guess, relatively hard. You have lethal hits built in. You can give them sustains, and then you can shoot into the oath target and just fish for lethal sustain on your big bolt shots. I don't hate that. The Tech Marine gives you redeployments. That's I imagine largely to reposition the vehicles, right? So that you can pull them out of lines of sight if you need to. You could also drop Lysander as a dead drop and then put him into reserve. Although, do you lose teleport homers if you do that? You don't, right? Oh, good. That's not what I wanted. Terminator Assault Squad. Where you at? Hello. There it is. The teleport homer triggers on start of battle. Oh, it just goes down anywhere. Yeah. So you can drop Lysander on the table and then pull them into reserve later, so that you basically buy one drop. And then I imagine that the Redeemer delivers Torgaradon, which does seem pretty spooky, because he getting up close and personal within 18 inches. Torgaradon's a fucking monster. Yeah, honestly, I don't know if I have too much to add here. I think this is pretty well composed. The downside is that you have to sort of like take the hit on the chin. So there are going to be some jail compositions that I think you might struggle against. It might be worth trying to fit an additional infiltrator unit in there just to make that a little bit more difficult. I mean, you do have the Redeemer that can clear out the midboard pretty easily, and if they do push up like really close to you, then it could be like you might be fine. But I can see like having a majority move 5 army that needs to get to the center might be a little bit difficult if your opponent's like pushing you really hard. So that's the one instance where I could see things being awkward. Otherwise, you can kind of just like full send the heavy intercessors and make your opponent commit onto them, and then you get to counterattack with everything, which seems fine. So, it's also like it's a tough list to find points into. Like maybe we could cut the redeployment, but like it's not enough to get a unit. So I don't know really where you drop points out of. The annoyingly, like the navigator is just slightly too many. I guess you could cut. If you cut the navigator, you might get 2 units out of it, but you have to cut so much in order to do that. So I think it's fine. Yeah, I like it. Neat. All right. Anyway, Chan, thanks for the super chant bucket. I think your list looks cool and interesting. I hope it does well, because I would love to talk about some Imperial Fists. Speaking of which, should we talk about some other lists that hop in? Like it when I show up at an event you're judging because all the locals go up to say you were on the internet. Fair enough. That's my primary contribution to the community is putting random people on the internet. For sure. I guess the other interesting thing about that list too is like you can drop a Repulsor Executioner into reserve, which also feels off of the redeploy, which I think is very strong. Being able to like ingress a Repulsor Executioner to then tow side terrain features can throw a lot of people off. And these sides of the table are so open that putting Rep X's in like weird places is super spooky. Plus, there's a lot of terrain features that overlap the 6-inch zone at the side now. So a lot of times you can just come out of reserve, see line of sight through them, and get rerolls for being inside terrain features. So I think that's also probably like a really powerful play pattern. I don't know necessarily if you even want 2 Repulsor Executioners on board. You want one of them to make your opponent have to move around its line of sight, but you don't want 2 because 2 just means that it's like 500 points of your army that won't, or 600 points of your army that won't do anything if your opponent dodges them. Anyway, have I seen the pick and band layout system used at Boise Cup? I have not. Is that sick? If I look at the player packet, will it tell me what that is? What we're talking about there? The Shared Fate layout system. Oh, let's read this, chat. I'm kind of into it. Here's the Shared Fate layout system. The start of each game, Players will have 20 minutes preceding each game to compare disposition, set up their layout. When players reach the layout selection step, both players will roll off. The player who lost the dice roll bans one of the 3 layouts. The winner picks one of the 3 remaining layouts to be set up and played for the game. After setup is complete, the round will begin. Players will be notified when the 20-minute setup is finished so they can start the game in a timely manner. Wait, this is sick! Whoa! That's so fucking cool! So you can just never play Dawn of War if you don't want to? That's sick, dude. I'm in. I'm all in. Every event should do this. This is cool. It also means that, like, it's difficult for you to build to a specific layout. Because, like, some armies are just like, I want to play Search and Destroy, but your opponent can always just ban that. So it's like, I might not play Search and Destroy. So you can't, like, build for a specific layout, and it feels like a lot of games will end up just playing Hammer and Anvil. One player will ban the player that's all melee will ban Dawn of War. The player that's all ranged attacks will ban Search and Destroy, and you'll just play Hammer and Anvil every game. Why is Dawn of War hated? It's like a billion reasons. Basically, because your deployment zone is nothing but frontage, it's very difficult to prevent ranged attacks from shooting you. It's very difficult to protect yourself from long threat ranges because you can't back deploy at all. If your opponent has like a 29-inch threat range or something and they deploy on the line, they just hit like the first like 3 inches of your deployment zone, 5 inches of your deployment zone. There's basically like no way that you can prevent that from hitting you in turn 1. You just have to punish them for being able to do it. And if you ever try to spread out to the sides to make that less powerful, then the ranged attacks shoot you because you're just out in the open. Because in order to protect yourself from ranged attacks, you have to like compress yourself into a little ball in certain positions. So it's really easy to be shot. It's really easy to be charged. And it's very difficult to screen because your whole deployment zone is really long. It like oftentimes will give like massive, if you play a fast gun line, so like you have both long threat ranges and good ranged attacks, like it like gives this massive advantage to like these alpha strikes that are able to do that. Layouts don't have names, but the deployment zones that the layouts have names. It was super clean. Yeah, that's actually sick. I really love that. Then you don't have to like show up to the table and be like, which way are we playing this round? Was it A, B, C, or C, B, A? I can't remember. I do love that. I don't know if I would implement that into my normal events, but when I run GTs, I might do that. That's really cool. That's really cool. It seems like a problem caused by point and movement inflation. It's not. It's super not. It's been the case in every format that that Dawn of War's been a thing, even like through 8th edition. I haven't played prior to 8th edition, but the same problem happened in 8th edition where it was just like it's like every single time Dawn of War's in a format, it has the same issue. To the point that in 9th edition, I think TOs almost but not ubiquitously like banned it. Almost universally, but not quite ubiquitously banned it. They just didn't. They're like, we're not doing this. It's stupid. It's unbalanced. It gives like massive buffs to the first player and to certain list compositions. So like we're playing the more consistent formats. Yeah, I think that's really cool, chat. Anyway, folks. Neat. Let's talk about some lists. I do have a list of lists that I have taken down here that I want to talk about. And we're going to go through those. This was like a long intro section. Usually I don't do that much. So first of all, we can head on over to the Maelstrom GT, a major level event, one of the largest events of the weekend, and one that had many... Oh no, BCP is cutting me off. I will have to change that. We'll just do like this, I guess. Oh, there we go. There we go. Now we can see people's names. First of all, Matt Root. I don't know if he's been playing recently, but nice to see him back in. He used to be he was a ITC champion, I think, in 1 year, which is cool. Back in like 2017 or something. But cool to see him back on the horse if he's been away. We also saw some crazy results here. Imperial agents at X and 1, fucking sick. The change to Veiled Blade Assassination Force, apparently pretty good. I don't know. I do want to jump in and talk about Kyle McCord's list. First thing, Kyle is, if you have not watched his stuff before, I've streamed a bunch of times. Oh, hello, that's my robot. If you haven't seen his stuff, him before, he's basically like one of, if not the most experienced, explicitly Dark Angels, player in the game, I think. He essentially, why is this all offset? I don't like that. He's essentially plays literally nothing but like various compositions of Dark Angels. In this case, he's playing Wrath of the Rock, so this is the OG one. It's 3 detachment points these days, so a lot of times it gets overshadowed by Company of Hunters if you want to like combo together multiple detachment abilities. But it gives you mostly -1 to be wounded on all your guys, and it works on both infantry and mounted. So the cool thing is that like it's supposed to be a combination of effects for both Ravenwing and Deathwing units. And the cool thing is that if you are taking a bunch of bicycles, the Ravenwing stuff gets legitimately difficult to kill. You can stack Stealth from a Dark Shroud, -1 to wound from the detachment ability, and a 5+ invuln save on units that in some cases have 4 wounds apiece. So these units are like really obnoxious to take down, and they can take up so much table space in the center of the battlefield. So we're taking a command squad. We're taking a Black Knight unit with the command squad, so we get anti-monster vehicle on the champion, which is cool because the Black Knights will give them anti on the charge. We have a Sternguard veteran squad, no enhancements on them, just hanging out with Azrael. That's a classic combo because Azrael also has a devastating weapon. He's got a combi weapon himself. So when you're shooting at the Oath target and you're getting full rerolls, he himself is actually contributing a lot of damage. Plus he gives them invuln, plus he gives them sustained hits, all things that you really want if you are a spooky gun unit. We have Lionel Johnson because he's cool and sweet. We have double Deathwing Knights. Again, -1 to wound on these guys. Pretty sweet. We also have an advance in charge and or advance and shoot stratagem inside the detachment. That is Tactical Mastery, I want to say. Yeah. Which gives you a lot of additional threat range on these guys. Even if they're coming in out of rapid ingress and they're relatively far away, they can advance and charge back into the fight. We have an Incursor squad. Inner Circle Companions with no character attachment, which is interesting. Yeah, just vibing, I guess. Huh. They lose their -1 to hit, I think, if they are not with a character, but you can still just play them. They just don't gain their defensive buff. But like as a unit, they're just fine for 80. You're attacking 12 times with a lethal 6/2/2 melee weapon. So like this unit as a little squad that can go in and kill 5 Space Marines on an objective is like very consistent. And you're probably trading up in most cases too. If you charge into an infiltrator unit or whatever that costs 100 points and you're sending your little 80-point unit, plus there's a benefit to little units like this in 11th edition because it's easier to give them gun to ground. So if they can like go into the center objective, clear the center objective, and then pull back behind the dense terrain there, it's actually kind of annoying to kill them. You have to get really like way up close into the middle, which is pretty neat. They removed the character necessity. What am I fucking looking at, chat? Is this... I updated this yesterday. Oh, maybe I didn't. Chat. I updated Sorry. One sec. I think I might have updated the data on a different version of my app. I have two apps on my machine, so that if I need to pull 2 instances of them up, then I might, then I may be able to do that. But I think I only updated one of them. So this one might be pre-fac. I might be able to change that real quick here. Hopefully that will just take a moment. Let's give it an update. Look at it go. In we go. It's so quick and fast. That's a great call out, chat. Thanks for setting me straight on that. If they just permanently get the bonus, that unit's actually sick. That's really cool. The event was slightly cursed since it was a gacha. No. Read your opponent's stratagems. I don't know. Sometimes you do just like run into that stuff. I think like the sportsman-like thing to do in that case is be like, you know, oh, it's like, do you want to not do that or whatever? If you shoot a bolt pistol at a land raider, and then your opponent's like, I will trigger my reaction to the bolt pistol. You'd be like, oh, did you not want to shoot your bolt pistol? Because it's like basically blank action. But you're not like that. I don't know. It feels weird when people are. There is an expectation that's the rule. That's just what happens. You are so right, chap. That's really good. Thanks for pointing me out. I wish my app auto updated, but it doesn't. It's just, yeah, I don't know. I think it's a weird precedent to set that it's like an expectation that at all points you should give your opponent a take back. There are certainly instances where you should not be giving your opponent a take back. If you're like, oh man, I moved my distance and then I triggered your reactive move, but you rolled a 6. Be like, oh, I didn't want to trigger reactive. I meant not to. I mean, fucking. Would you have said that if I rolled a 1? Probably not. I don't know. It's a whole thing. Anyway, chat. We've got Landspeeder, Outrider Squad. The Landspeeder, of course, does not get the benefits of the detachment ability, but they're just such a good unit that you take them anyway. Outrider Squad does get the -1 to be wounded, and you can give it advanced charge. It's a pretty big deal. So, we've got double Scout Squads and a Storm Speed or Thunder Strike, so we can get +1 to wound for all these little Melta attacks and stuff. Interestingly, there's not like a lot of. I guess the Ravenwing Command Squad does shoot 6 Plasma Talons, right? So it's potentially 18 attacks at Strength 8. Giving +1 to wound to that means that there is a not unreasonable chance that they will knock down like a 10 wound vehicle before they go into melee. So you could twofer with this unit, and this unit's only 105 points. Did Black Knights get a points reduction in the MFM? I know that Outriders did, right? Or was that in the previous update? Black Knights for 75 to give anti-vehicle to the Ravenwing champion actually seems like such a steal, to be honest. Dark Angels stonks so far up, it's crazy. Dude, Inner Circle Companions got buffed and went down points. Oh, they went down points in the giant units, which you rarely take. Command Squads went down. Black Knights, it doesn't seem like went down. No, just the Command Squad, which I guess is fair. Dark Angel's really good. I don't know. Once a dice rolls, yeah. That makes sense. The fact that Braziers give stealth. So they still have -1 to hit. It's just that they don't stack it with cover, right? Is how it works. One sec. Oh. There we go. That's better. Okay. God damn it. Which they did for basically everything, right? So I don't know. The fact that you don't need a character is crazy though. That's super duper good. Yeah, but the I think the in-universe explanation is that the Braziers are like they're more like an incense burner, right? Than like a fire. Like if you look at them, it's called a brazier, but it's actually just wafting a bunch of smoke around, so it's like hard to see them is the idea. Because they have to be dark and mysterious because they're sneaky dark angels. Sneaky, spooky dark angels. I think now that I know that Inner Circle Companions lost the requirement to be led, I think Inner Circle Commanders are fucking sick now. That unit seems amazing. 80 points for like 20, whatever it is, 27 points a model for a dude who just hits like a fucking truck. It's like awesome. This should be called a sensor. I agree with that for sure. Hopping on over to another one. Another X and 1. So that was X0 and 1, tied in the finals, which is pretty cool. I hope that game was sick. David Bergstrom over there was rocking with Bringers of the Flame and Sacred Champions. That's an interesting combination. So Sacred Champions we just talked about for a moment. We'll talk for a moment as well about how good Sacred Champions is. I think at release, when we looked at this originally, when it first came out, we were like, this is a very good detachment. It gives you a lot of really good bonuses, and it has crazy good stratagems. It gives you advance, shoot, charge, sick. It gives you +1 attack and strength, sick. But it only ever affects Celestian Sacresants. The weird part was that they went so far out of their way on release to fucking dumpster Celestian Sacresants. They like went up in points. All their characters went up in points. They lost a bunch of synergy. It was like, what the fuck? They hate this unit apparently. And then they realized the error of their ways. They dropped all the Celestian Sacresants and their attendant units. Now every army is taking multiple units of them, and Sacred Champions is fucking sick. So I don't know, what a Cinderella story, I guess. Bringers of the Flame is an interesting combination with it, though. I don't know necessarily if there's any particular synergy there. You give your yourself army-wide assault. I guess it gives you access to priority assets, whereas Sacred Champions, I think, is taken hold, right? I'm gonna double check myself on that. It is taken hold. So Bringers gives you a pretty strong force disposition, but most of its effects buff like your ranged attacks. We can give lethal hits, but you could already gain lethal hits by taking maces, which we're doing in most of these units. You can get Armor of Contempt, but you don't super need it on Celestian Sacresants because they're a 3+ with an invuln save, so it works against only AP1. That said, it does make Morven Vol kind of disgusting. Morven Vol with the ability to advance and shoot, sort of a huge deal. So, I don't know. That's not too bad. In this case, we're running Morven Vol with Paragon Warsuits with multi-meltas, so we can go to strength 10 if we're within 12, or within 6, I think, actually. It's got the like weird bad version of the Bringer, yeah, the Firestorm Assault Force detachment ability. So it's a little bit difficult to trigger. We have Battle Sisters, Immolators to combat squad the Battle Sisters, triple Castigator, double Dominion squads. What's interesting is that, so we can combat squad the Dominions inside Immolators and combat squad the Sisters inside the Immolator. This is what I was talking about previously, where it's like typical Sisters lists have 1 trillion units. So these 3 units turn in, plus their transports, turn into 9 individual activations. We get 3 units with heavy weapons. In this case, we're taking Ministorum and Flamers. 1 Ministorum and Flamer unit, 1 Meltagun unit. So we have an anti-infantry squad and an anti-tank squad. The Battle Sisters are taking Meltas as well. So we have 1 3-shot combat squad, 1 4 Melta-shot combat squad, 1 4 Flamer combat squad, and then 3 5 Bolter utility squads that can just screen or do actions or whatever. Because we're playing priority assets, we want to be able to disincentivize our opponent from pushing forward, which we can do really easily with the Celestian Sacresants. And we want a high volume of those utility units that can go to the middle, which we have certainly with all of these combat units, these combat squad units. Plus, the Immolators themselves have a crazy turn 1 threat range, so we're able to like set the line of scrimmage past that midboard, because you can scout them with the Dominions, you can advance them, then you can disembark after advancing for a command point. So you can go in and either like cook an infantry unit or cook a tank with the Meltas or the Flamers, whichever you need. And then you have good backline shooting from the Castigators. This is just like fundamentals. This is sweet. Honestly, we didn't even take enhancements of the Sacresants. It's like we don't need anything special. They're just big units of Sisters that can punch things that go to the center of the table. We can give them +1 attack. They have lethal hits in melee. They have 1 million attacks. And we're just like forcing so many AP 1/2 damage swings out of people that they eventually die. I like this list, chat. That's cool. That's pretty straightforward. I Sacred Champions as just a slot in these days, right? It's 500 points, 2 units at, I guess it's less than that. It's 2 units at between 215 and 225. So it's like 450, 440, I guess. And it just gives you 2 units that are good melee counterpunch. That's it. It's 450 and a detachment point, and you just like it's its own little friendly group, and you just slot it into other 2-point detachments, and it just gives you a fight phase. Whereas previously, Bringers of the Flame in a lot of cases, outside Morvenval, was really actually like bad at fighting. It would try to get close to you to shoot Meltaguns, but none of its abilities actually really buffed you in the fight phase. So you ended up just like being close to you, and then your opponent would charge you, and you're like, if I didn't have good Overwatch, if I was not taking like a bunch of Immolation Flamers and stuff, it was really not that great, to be honest. That's a cool list, chat. I think the I don't know, the last update to some factions it was like pretty hard, but in the case of Adepta Sororitas, I do think it's a bit of a swan song or a happy ending, because that faction was in the doldrums. They were having a really tough time, and the fact that Sacresants have been able to like just, you know, reach out with their big hallowed spear and drag the whole faction back to playability has been pretty helpful. Do I ever color other GW games or non-Games Workshop games? So I do occasionally. Usually I'll do a video, like a recap video, when I go to Adepticon and talk about other games. I fucking love I just love miniature games as an industry. I think it's really interesting and cool. I own my own miniature gaming company. We make our own game called Breachstorm. The downside is that this is like the YouTube channel is my full-time. And unfortunately, when I talk about things that aren't 40K, it tends to do really poorly. And the downside, like the tyranny of YouTube is that if I talk about things that do poorly consistently, then the channel as a whole suffers. So I would love to talk more about general 40K stuff. Or general miniature gaming stuff, excuse me. However, it's really not realistically like that possible. It's speaking as like, if I wanted to speak from if I wanted to talk with authority on anything, I would not have the same breadth of experience with any other game. So I can't really like give you interesting analysis or list building or whatever for other games, because there's not enough hours in the day for me to be able to do that. So I don't really cover them. So it's multifaceted. I would like to talk about miniature games as a whole. I think if the ecosystem was such that I could do this to the same breadth without just talking about 40K, I would 100% do that. But unfortunately, 40K is that's where the bag's at for sure. Biggest War Machine channel on the internet. It used to be at one point. Maybe we were there. I could just open a second channel. I mean, I guess so. But then the problem is that like there's only so many hours in the day, right? And so I could have a second channel where I talk about other stuff. The downside is like, it won't be monetized. It would take a bunch of time, and it would take away content from this channel, which is where I make my rent. So it's tough. It's tough to do. I do talk about them occasionally though. I do like talking about them quite a bit. I think miniature game design is just fascinating to me. I think it's so interesting. It's such a like center point of a bunch of Venn diagrams between like role playing, spectacle, like simulation, like an analog simulation of so things that happen, like physical reality in some cases, and then also game design. And it's like sits right at the apex of all those things, and sometimes they fight. And it's funny. Sometimes you have games where it's like it's all about making it as realistic as possible, but then the game experience suffers because people are like, this is very fun. Why do I have to calculate my bullet drop when I'm playing this game? And then sometimes you get into the role-playing aspect where you have a lot of character design, but then you pull away from the reality of the experience. I think it's really cool. I think that there's like a happy medium between the two. I don't know if any game has quite reached it yet, or between the three, I guess. I don't think any game's like really quite there, but it's an iterative process. between all these myriad of games that are constantly designing themselves, and I think it's really cool and fun. Anyway, chat. Thanks for featuring Siaphic's Tyranid list in the last recap video. Oh yeah, of course, for sure. That's a cool list. Some classic Assimilation Swarm and Norn stuff. It's always cool to see also like other just, far-flung areas that are doing it. We talk so much about UK, US, Europe events that when we get lists from like South Africa or Malaysia, like we did this week, it's really cool. And every once in a while, we just get a ton of them where we're talking about lists from like Hong Kong and Abu Dhabi and all these places. And it's like, this is kind of sweet, actually. 40K is in reality a very global hobby. And while it might not be quite as popular in different areas of the world, it definitely has a foothold there. And I'm sure that we are only going to see the player base in those places increase as the game gets more popular, which is sweet. Not even Trench Crusade. I have a funny story about Trench Crusade because when we were at Adepticon year before last, I think I want to say, year before last. When Trench Crusade wasn't like just out, but it was like getting momentum, right? It was like a couple months after the Kickstarter. It had done really well, and we were demoing for Breachstorm. And my business partner kept getting comments about like he would explain a mechanic, be like, here's how the activation system works. It's an I-go-you-go with an officer mechanic so that you can chain activate in some cases. And somebody would be like, oh, just like Trench Crusade. And he got that comment like 15 times over the weekend, and by the end of the weekend he was fucking livid. He's like, no, it's not like Trench Crusade. Trench Crusade is like us. We were here first. Get out of here, Trench Crusade. What are you doing? It's an inside joke whenever we go to events now, that he explicitly has it out for Trench Crusade for that one interaction, which is very funny. I love it. They're planning their first big event in Tokyo? Dude, that's sick. That's so awesome. Let's talk about some Imperial agents, chat. I would love to talk to you about some insane lists. Matt Stadnick ended up doing it with Imperialis Fleet plus Veiled Blade Elimination Force. So Imperialis Fleet, obviously, it's like the bread and butter for Imperial agents. It gives you can choose either an objective or a unit. You get +1 to hit against the unit. You get a +1 OC and an invuln save if you choose an objective. You choose that each round, and you get the passive bonus the rest of the round. Pretty sweet. It also has some crazy good stratagems. Displacer Field is one of the craziest stratagems. You have to target a character unit. So anyone with being led by a character, for example, it gives you your whole unit a 4+ invulnerable save, and after the attacks are resolved, you displace 6 inches. You move as if you had fly. I read recently, I actually read a book. I did prove that I know how to read, and I read the, I think it was one of the Caiaphas Cain books, and they use a displacer field. It is an in-universe piece of technology that it's like a force field that when activated just teleports you somewhere. Just absolutely unhinged. And they teleport, and they're like, they go from one room to the other, and they're like, whew, that was lucky. We could have ended up in a wall. And I was like, why does anyone use this? Well, the answer is that it's a really good stratagem, so it's fine. Extremely Inquisition coded, though. It's very cool. So this detachment is at a baseline very, very good, but then we also get Veiled Blade Elimination Force. And the change here, of course, was that you get this one for 1 DP, and all the other detachments cost 2 DP. So this is the only combination of detachments in the game that gives you a full 12 stratagems. 2 detachments put together, both of them 6 stratagems. Here's the thing. Veiled Blade Elimination Force's stratagems are atrocious. So it's fine. You can, for example, spend 2 CP for +1 toughness. Fucking cool, man. On explicitly only a character unit. You can't even do it on like a vehicle or something. Sick. If you're an Eversword Assassin, you get a Feel No Pain. We love that. Wow. Pretty cool. The big thing here, though, is that we get things like a 6-inch lone op on your lone operative, so it can be very difficult to take them down. The other thing, too, is that, of course, you get double activations on your assassin abilities, and your assassins all get special extra abilities, which is cool. Although they cost extra points, so like it's kind of a wash, to be honest. So in this list, we're rocking Draxus with the Navy Breacher squad. The big thing here is that the Imperial Navy Breachers get wound rerolls when they are targeting something on an objective. They're basically like the Tau Breachers. Breachers, I guess, regardless of the species, all sort of work the same. Draxus, of course, has a million sort of mid-strength attacks, including some devastating wound attacks. Giving her wound rerolls is huge. And the big downside of these guys is that their ballistic skill is not very good. They're mostly ballistic skill 4, in some cases even 5. And getting +1 to hit because of the detachment ability when you target an enemy unit to like Oath of Moment is very good. We have a Watchmaster with Clandestine Operation, which lets you, if I remember correctly, infiltrate a bunch of your battle line units. That is, or sorry, infantry, not battle line. You just can't infiltrate Terminators. And with an Aquila kill team, to be honest, I don't even know what that does. Oh, it's basically a Deathwatch veteran team. Okay. So it gives you reroll hit rolls of 1. If you target non-Imperium, non-Chaos enemies, you get reroll hits. So effectively, any Xenos faction, or Leagues of Votann, I guess, which I guess are questionably Xenos. We are playing full 10 men. We have a pair of Stalker bolt rifles, marksman bolt carbines, a veteran with a frag cannon. Okay, fair enough, I guess. So it's mostly shooting, but we do get advance and do stuff with the Watchmaster. Largely, we take this like Watchmaster with Deathwatch veterans as like a melee counterpunch. It doesn't seem like these guys have a ton of melee. We have a Xenophase Blade in there and a couple power weapons, but the classic Deathwatch veterans had Thunderhammers. Yeah, this is typically what we take. So we have a second Deathwatch veteran, or excuse me, a second Watchmaster with another Deathwatch kill team. These guys are equipped with a quartet, I guess, of Deathwatch Thunderhammers. They get advanced shoot and charge, so they can fire the frag cannons and Infernus bolters on the way in. Oftentimes, you can 2-for-1 with this unit, where they charge into something, they blow it up, and they shoot like a 5-man infantry squad on the way with their blast weapons. The other thing, too, is that we have a very expensive 2CP stratagem inside Imperialis fleet, where we can get Lance and sustained hits. It is Violent Inquisition. You get sustained hits, Lance, and ignore cover. So it works both in shooting and fight. You get ignore cover if you're shooting, and you get Lance if you're fighting, because those don't do anything on the opposite form of weapon. You don't ever get both of those things because it's only usable and it only affects you for one phase. However, sustained hits plus Lance on this unit that's attacking with these like massive 3-damage Thunderhammer attacks is absolutely sick. So we love to see that. We have another Watchmaster for the Deathwatch kill team. Again, another quartet of Thunder Hamblers. A Calexis Assassin. Does it automatically... How much? What's the points value in a Calexis Assassin? 95 if you select Veiled Blade Elimination Force. Yeah, so it makes all of your assassins more expensive because you get the extra ability. I actually don't know what the Veiled Blade ability is for Calexis. And then the other thing, too, is that they have a little tiny Shadow in the Warp effect. Oh my god, I can't believe it. It's annoying that there's a Veiled Blade inside Custodes, and every time I look this up, it kills me. You can grenade people. 1 mortal wound for each 3 instead of 4 for plus 10 points. Pretty cool. And then the Calexis Assassin, the other thing, too, is that they get to 6-inch deep strike. So a lot of times what you're trying to do is drop in next to a unit. You can throw your grenade because you're in grenade range. So the bonus of the grenades is pretty good. You can do some damage. Their ranged attack is not that bad. It's 3 shots, anti-psyker 2+, kind of sweet. And I believe it gets extra attacks if you target a psyker. Yeah, it becomes 6 attacks. But then, because you're already there, unless they overwatch you to death or something, then at the start of their next command phase, you can use this effect to force Battle Shock and everything within 9. So you can do, even if they've fully screened out objectives, you can drop this dude in 6 inches away and then try to battle shock them off their like home objectives in their turn. As long as you like basically drop it and then sit there for a round. So you do a little bit of damage, then you can dump like this little like Shadow in the Warp thing on people, which is cool. We have a Navigator with Combat Landers, another Aquila kill team, just as a little utility unit, I guess. 2 of those, 2 Rhinos to deliver the Deathwatch veteran squads. Or I guess maybe in this case we put the Sanctifiers in them for Scout, so that we have early game sort of stuff we can do. And I guess like realistically, what we could potentially do is just drop the Sanctifiers in the Rhinos, scout the Rhinos forward, drop the Sanctifiers out, go do stuff, and then refill them with the Deathwatch kill teams, and we get to do both. What's our force disposition? Recon. So being able to push the Sanctifiers pretty far forward, turn 1's kind of a big deal, because we can do things like grab table quarters or grab far-flung objectives early, which is what Recon typically wants to be doing. We have a Subductor squad, just to be able to hold down territory. 3 Subductor squads, in fact. So the other thing to keep in mind here, of course, is that we just talked about how good Displacer Fields were, and we did have all of these Deathwatch veteran teams, all of which have Watchmasters in them. So oftentimes what will happen is that if you have a position where you can relatively safely hide your Rhino around the center of the battlefield, let's say our opponent has units in the middle of the table, the Deathwatch kill team runs up and beats them to death with Thunderhammers. They then consolidate back towards their Rhino, get shot, activate the Displacer Field, take 4+ invulns on like regular fucking morons like the frag cannon guides or whatever that we don't really care about. Then when they trigger the Displacer Field effect, they go 6 inches backwards, go within 3 of the Rhino, enter the Rhino. So these units, if you are set up for it, these units can kind of like yo-yo in and out across the center of the battlefield. It's a lot of command points to do that, because oftentimes you're going to have to be like violently acquiring if you want to kill big stuff, and then you have to use the Displacer Field. But it allows those Deathwatch teams to effectively reposition themselves like 12 to 15 inches after attacking if your opponent shoots them. So your opponent has to engage them only in melee without making any ranged attacks into them, which in some matchups is really difficult to deal with. Which is cool. A reactive and 4+ invuln is 1 CP, but the buff is 2. Yeah. Imperial Agent stratagems don't make any sense. Don't think about them too much. The +1 toughness on a character infantry unit for 2 CP is the one that kills me every time. I remember we watched I streamed a Veiled Blade game a couple months ago in 10th edition, and there was an instance where somebody was trying to kill an Eversor assassin with like an intercessor squad, and they had like run the intercessor squad out. Everyone takes fire. They get their double attacks. They blast into that guy, and he's like, "Oh, I'm going to use my +1 toughness strat." And I was like, "Wow, that's a great strat in this situation. Awesome." And then he takes this thing down 2 command points. I was like, "No fucking way. That's crazy." And I think the Eversor still died. I was like, "Are you serious?" 2 command points, bro, for +1 toughness. That would be a free thing in some other factions. Insane. Absolutely insane. Displacer Field was a war gear option back in 2nd edition. Gave you a 3+ invuln save with a teleport in a random direction if you saved. That's fucking sick. That's so fun. I don't know. That's extremely fun effect. I love the idea too that it's like it could just bring you closer, so your opponent's like, "I guess I'll charge you now," and you're like, "All right." You're like, I will protect myself from your shooting. You're like, "I don't give a shit. Come at me, bro." I want to talk momentarily about World Eaters. I think World Eaters are an interesting place. I think a lot of people had sort of written them off here, and I don't know. I think they've got some stuff going on, especially since they have they alleviated a lot of the detachment tension that the faction previously had. And Death Guard, it's +2 toughness for 1 command point. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, believe me, I know. Kind of crazy. So let's hop over and talk about Nathaniel Pomer's list. Rocking Brazen Engines plus Possessed Alderman. So Brazen Engines is pretty, I think, popular right now because you do get that ignore modifiers on your Demon Engines, which is cool. So you can actually buff your your big gun vehicles pretty well. You can do some good stuff. We also are playing it with Possessed Slaughter Band. So this is a 2 detachment point detachment that gives all of your possessed units, so the 8-bound and the Exalted, a D6 surge move if you lost a model in the unit. Now, of course, if we're taking Slaughterbound, here's the spooky thing. The Slaughterbound can now regenerate models back to their unit, even if their bodyguards are destroyed. Because you have... I believe that's the case, right? They didn't take that out in the heal rolls. Now I have to double check myself. It is in healing. I know that happened in a sec. Yeah, he just bring people back to life. So previously, when you because your Slaughterbound would end up becoming a separate unit as soon as the rest of his unit died, it was very sad, and so you would just kill like 3 8-bound, and the Slaughterbound would die or would survive, but then he couldn't return a bodyguard model back to the unit. Because he's always considered to be leading the unit, he can always return bodyguard models back. So he, even if all of the 8-bound die and the Slaughterbound lives, which often happens, you're still going to get a dude back, which is also passively going to increase your threat range because you place them in coherency 3 inches forward. And it actually makes them really awkward to deal with. So you're combining this fact that shooting at these guys can simply give them extra movement with the fact that not killing them can also hurt you quite a bit. So I don't know. It's an interesting combination of effects. Let's go back to our Possessed Slaughter Band. I don't know necessarily what kind of strategies we have. 2 CP, -1 to be wounded. Eat your heart out, Veiled Blade Elimination Force. They have 2 CP +1 toughness. This is just -1 to wound. +1 toughness is -1 to wound contextually. This is -1 to wound all the time. Demonic Strength. Each time a model in your unit, an attack made by a model in your unit is allocated to an enemy model. If your unit has the 8-bound keyword and the enemy model is not a monster or vehicle, it gets +1 damage. If you are Exalted 8-bound, then you get +1 damage to monster vehicle if you are monster vehicle instead. So it basically further buffs their units against their specific target, because Exalted 8-bound already get a bunch of bonuses against monsters and vehicles. And the regular 8-bound get bonuses against not monsters and vehicles. So we have Exalted 8-bound unit, a standard 8-bound unit, both of them with Slaughterbound. One of them has, let's look at the enhancements real quick here. One of them has Violent Demise, which gives you 2+ Deadly Demise instead of on a 6. In addition, you have the Deadly Demise D3 +1 instead of Deadly Demise D3. That's pretty cute. I guess the other funny thing is that because Slaughterbound, well, I don't know if there's anything particularly funny about that. I guess it's just theoretically you're dying in the middle of your opponent's army, so it's totally fine. It's probably just like extra value. It's annoying that you pay 10 points and you could still fail on a 1, but it is what it is. Frenzied Focus is the other one. Each time a model in the bear's unit makes an attack, a critical hit is scored on an unmodified hit roll of 5 instead of 6. Of course, you can get critical effects from the Blessings of Khorne, so we could get lethal or sustained hits on these guys, so 5-up criticals is always going to be helpful, and it affects the whole unit, which is nice. We have a Demon Prince, 1 Defiler, standard 8-bound unit, standard Exalted 8, or another Exalted 8-bound unit, 1 Forge Fiend, a bunch of utility, double Jackal, Goremongers, and then a Hellbrute with Murder Forged Entity. So that's from Brazen Engines, which gives him Demon for 15 points. Okay, that gives him the ability to force battle shocks on enemies. It also means that you can use the stratagems on them. That includes stuff like ignore modifiers to hit roll, wound roll, weapon skill, and ballistic skill. You can also give your guys a surge move. So literally everything besides, I guess, the jackals in this army can surge, which is very funny. And then we also get Trail of Destruction, which gives you mobile. So for 15 points, you get all that stuff. You get access to all that. Of course, the Hellbrute is a little bit less powerful now that his reactive attacks are limited. But for 135 points, having a little unit that can come in and be relatively mobile and come in and punch a couple times is not too bad. It seems pretty okay. How does the new Ravenwing Command Squad work? The app doesn't say their support, but the faction or MFM says they are. I don't believe the MFM says they are unless they updated it. That is an issue with the current Minotaur and Field Manual. At least to my knowledge, yes. You probably can't see because it's cut off, but the Ravenwing Command Squad is currently listed as a leader. The Minotaur and Field Manual is gospel when it comes to leader and support rules and keywords. So currently, the faction pack says they should have support, but they don't. So currently, they aren't a support unit. That's likely to change the next time someone notices. So, it is what it is. All right, let's move on and talk about some other stuff. I want to talk about before we leave our friends over at Northern Maelstrom. Let's talk about some Iron Hands because I think it's cool. That is this list here. I thought this was a very interesting composition because it was not one that I have seen before. It's a combination of, or I guess I've seen this combination before, but I have not seen it explicitly with Iron Hands. I've seen this with Ultramarines because Ultramarines have a bunch of good embeds into battle line units, but I haven't seen it with other factions, and I think it's really interesting. So it's a combination of Bastion Task Force and Liberia's Conclave. So Bastion Task Force, of course, gives your battle line units advanced charge, do actions, all that stuff. Liberia's Conclave gives you bonuses for your Psyker units. So if you're able to combine those things, it's going to go crazy. In this case, we're playing Canik Var with a Terminator Ancient and a Terminator Assault Squad. So this squad is going to get because they become a battle line unit with Hero of the Chapter from the Terminator Ancient. And this is, of course, empowered by the recent change to the rules that you can add an epic hero into an enhanced unit, which you previously couldn't. So now we can put Canik Var into the Terminator Assault Squad. He can give them Scout, and then you can advance and charge with this unit. So this unit can put just an immense amount of pressure into the center of the battlefield. I believe Bastion Task Force also has a -1 to be wounded stratagem for battle line units. It is Angel's Defiant. It gives you -1 to be wounded if the strength of the attack is greater than the toughness characteristic of the unit if you are battle line, which they are because of Hero of the Chapter. That's the enhancement that gives the bearer explicitly the battle line keyword. Because he is battle line, then the unit is battle line keyword. There's some stuff in here that gives you the ability to like specific abilities for battle line models. He doesn't give that to the rest of the unit, but you can be affected by stratagems and things like that, which is pretty sweet. It was Guillermo del Toro stealing Angry Joe. No, Angry Joe was came to talk to us at Adepticon. I think he even filmed some content. We were in the video, I believe. We had a bad time because the position that we were given in the vendor hall was, or we weren't even in the vendor hall. We were just off in the boonies. It was not good. It was not a good position. Very sad. Last year, this year we just ran events all weekend. It was sick. We actually had a great time. And we're probably going to do that again. I don't know if we're going to do a booth this coming year as well. We have a Librarian with Blades of Valor to give +1 AP to battle line stuff in his unit. He's inside an Assault Intercessor squad. So the interesting thing is, of course, that we can combine these big units that can advance and charge with the 4+ invulnerable save from the Librarian himself. And then you can also use Biomancy to give your unit +2 movement because they are a Psyker unit. So these guys could be move 8, advance, and charge, which doesn't seem like the craziest thing. But when you're staring down the barrel of a boatload for them, it seems relatively cheap, 230 points. It's 40 AP2, effectively full reroll attacks. They can get +1 to wound from Oath of Moment really easily. And Kanikvar gives you access to multiple. Oh, no, he doesn't. He doesn't give you access to multiple Oath of Moment. Ignore me, chat. That's only in Hammer of Avernii. Anyway, it's 20 wounds of guys, the 4+ invulnerable save, 40 attacks, AP2, full wound rerolls. It's like kind of a lot. And then obviously being battle line, these guys can also access that -1 to be wounded strat, which is cool. You can also do things like if you don't need the threat range, you can give them like -1 strength and attacks targeting them. So you can make like a strength 8 weapon to a strength 7 weapon, then give it -1 to wound, and it wounds on 4s. So a strength 8 blast weapon, like a plasma gun, is wounding this unit on 4s, and they're saving on 4s. So like a full activation from like a big plasma cannon or something is going to kill like 2 guys, maybe, on a good day. We also are taking Ironfather Furos inside an apothecary with an apothecary Biologus. I have the Primarch on that one. Don't know what that one does. I imagine that's a Bastion Task Force one that gives you precision. Huh. That's kind of spooky, actually. That's recontextualized quite a bit from the new with the new precision rolls. Importantly, this does only affect battle line models in the unit, so Fieros can't do it on his cool heavy bolter. But you get lethal hits on these guys. They are battle line. They don't get the Librarius buffs because we're not a Psyker in this unit. But Fieros is giving them a feel no pain. It's 30 wounds with the heavy intercessor like AP reduction thing. And then they shoot pretty good, right? It's 2 heavy bolters plus 8 heavy bolt rifles. So it's a lot of like 2+ damage shooting, and being able to apply precision to all that means that if you do leave a character out, they can just pick the character up. And they can advance and shoot and do it too. And this is a unit that's just going to run to the middle of the table, just take the center. And basically force you to overcommit into it to kill it. It's actually really spooky. I like that. I think we watched a Bastion Task Force. It was a Imperial Fists army ages ago that ran Bastion and just was nothing but heavy intercessor squads, like running up the table. It was like 30 heavy intercessors. And in that detachment, because they're relatively difficult to kill, and they have battle line without like having to do anything, but they're slow. So offsetting their slowness makes them really spooky. That unit was actually really kind of awesome. We then have a Fusillade Librarian with a Hellblaster squad. These guys are not battle line at all, so they don't get any of the battle line bonuses. However, we get to use the new version of Fusillade. So Fusillade has been changed to give, I believe that it is sustained hits, and then if you're in Pyromancy Discipline, it also gives you lethal hits. Yes. So, or the other way around. Lethal hits baseline, sustained hits if you're in Pyromancy. We have an Apothecary in them, so we can bring them back when they kill themselves. And then they get a 4+ invulnerable save, from the Librarian, plus all of these bonuses, so you don't need any additional guys helping out. But I think this is a good indication of the interesting places that we can put the new Fusillade enhancement. So Fusillade did get nerfed, of course. It does not give you devastating, or didn't give you anti-monster, anti-vehicle anymore, which was such a classic combination with Sternguard veterans. Sternguard veterans could go in any detachment. They got a bunch of bonuses. They got rerolls against their oath target. So you were 5+ critical against monsters and vehicles, full hit and wound rerolls targeting your oath thing. You would just do like dump a 16+ mortal wounds onto people. They changed it so the effects you get are less specifically strong with devastating weapons. However, they are good into a wider variety of units.
Adrenicops donated £3.33 through Super Chat. Thoughts on Tyranids? Detachment sends such much love.
We're going to do Tyranids next. I think Tyranids are decidedly mid right now, but in terms of detachment, I do think that their build variety is very strong. I think there's still some people making Subterranean Assault work. It blows my mind, but they're doing it apparently. Vanguard Onslaught is my probably favorite detachment in the entire game currently. And there are very like classic Tyranid builds that are just playing like really mid-board control-y stuff with Assimilation Swarm or Invasion Fleet. So I think Tyranids, general overview, I think Tyranids they're doing okay. And they have a lot of interesting places to go. They definitely could get some love, I think. I don't know. They're like, they're certainly not a bad performing faction. Like, they're doing fine. They're winning GTs, but they aren't like crazy strong or anything. Which is unfortunate because I thought they were poised to do very well, and then they were like they copped a random nerf last week for like basically no reason, which is wild. Toxic Creed can't fit in tunnels now. Yeah, R.I.P. Get wrecked, Toxic Creed. New Fuse Loss is good with regular intercessors. I 100% agree. Yeah, so regular intercessors, right, shoot 40 times with their bolt rifles. You choose a target, you get double bolt rifle attacks against it. So you're shooting 1 billion times with like pretty reasonable. It's not good, but it's like reasonable impact weapons. If you have any way to gain improved criticals, they go kind of crazy. But even such, this Hellblaster squad is just a good unit, right? Sustained lethal is sort of the classic Hellblaster combination. We saw people make that work in 10th edition by trying to like run multiple Hellblaster squads with like Storm of Fire, or what is it? Eye of the Storm, the enhancement from White Scars, where you would take these combinations of effects. You take a lieutenant, and then you would take a guy who could provide sustained, and then you would get all of those effects. You just get that with Fusillade now. And I think it's really interesting because I think the enhancement is less powerful, but it's more useful, if that makes sense. You could just put it in, like plug it into random units, and it becomes good. I think it's much healthier for the Space Marine faction in general. We have another Intercessor squad for utility, Ballistic Dreadnought, Gladiator Lancer, Infiltrator squad for a little bit of shooting as well. I love this build, chat. This is really cool. Just like these like real infantry pressure armies from Bastion Task Force, I think are a little slept on because they are spooky. It's like, it doesn't seem like, you look at it and you're like, all right, it's just a bunch of fucking guys, I guess. But then you play against it and you suddenly like, you see all the numbers come down and you're like, it's all infantry. So it can get hidden. It can get gone to ground. It's all OC2 plus, or most of it is, right? All the frontline units, right? These guys have a Terminator Ancient, so they're +1 OC. These guys are all baseline OC2 because they're battle line units. So it's all high OC. I guess these guys are OC3 even, so the OC characteristic's massive. It all advances and shoots. So if I play passively, it will eventually reach me. And if I don't overcommit the middle, I'm not going to be able to do enough to actually wrest them from their objectives, and they're eventually just going to win because they're playing take and hold. And of course, some armies do have the infantry sweeping to deal with them, but it's like, you need a lot. You got all these fucking assault terminators. You got all these 4+ invuln save, like 2 wound infantry everywhere. And the damage is pretty spooky. It's good. It's good damage for those guys. I like that list, Jan. I want to shout that out. I think that's neat. Now, we want to talk about Tyranids for a sec.
Young 6,931 donated $5 through Super Chat.
Thanks for the Super Chat.
Could we look at the Space Marine Combat Patrol Army rule in the app? Terry's rumors that the combat doctrines will replace oath in codes.
I thought that those were not rumors. I thought that those were explicit. Was I wrong? I thought that they had already discussed that. How do I find those? Is it a detachment? If I look up detachments, will they be in there? It's soft confirmed? Because they talked about it on Warhammer Community. I'm not going to go back and look it up. But I thought that they had previewed that as a rule in Warhammer Community. It's Combat Patrol in the app. If I search Combat Patrol, I get core rules. So I don't know, chat. Oh, here we go. If you go to the faction, you can find it. All right, army rule. We have found it. In your command phase, select one of the combat doctrines abilities below. Friendly Adepta starters unit of the selected combat doctrine ability until the start of the next command phase. Assault doctrine, you can declare a charge in turn in which you advance. Devastator doctrine, you can shoot in a turn in which you advance. Tactical doctrine, you can shoot and declare a charge in turn you make a fallback move. Each combat doctrine cannot be selected more than once for battle. So I would say, speaking personally, if I were to put money on a style of ability to become the Space Marine faction rule in the new codex, if it's not Oath of Moment, I think it's something like this. Maybe it's not necessarily explicitly this. I was under the impression they'd already confirmed that this was going to be it, but I guess I'm wrong. I don't know. I guess pay attention that much about spoilers. Talk about the stuff that's currently in the game. However, this was the Space Marine faction ability for like 2 full editions. And then they nuked it for Oath of Moment. And Oath of Moment is a little weird. It felt, maybe it was just like the old hammer in me talking, but it didn't feel very, like, I don't know how to put it. It didn't feel like particularly Space Marine-y. I guess it's like that they want to, like, you know, identify the weak point because they're a strike force and they go in and they blow up the one unit. But the issue is that, like, it depowered so much of the Space Marine army because you all had to be worried, like all your damage profiles had to be built around that one specific ability where you could, like, supercharge damage against one specific thing, that it made all the regular Space Marines just feel really bad to fight with. It was like, I don't know. It didn't feel particularly on brand for Space Marines. Whereas these effects, I think, are incredibly on brand for Space Marines. So I would say, I think it's a very strong likelihood that something like this is the case. Plus, you get to do all sorts of interesting things where you can have abilities in the Codex where units change their stats based on what doctrine is active. That's fucking sick. That's cool, dude. What if tactical Marines or intercessors or whatever do a different thing if you have tactical doctrine active? Or your assault intercessors get a bonus if you have assault doctrine active. That's sick. That's sick and cool and thematic. So I would say, I think it's very strong likelihood this is what's going on. Obviously, it will need some redux for the other factions that are built around Oath of Moment, but it is what it is, chats. Just like Tyranids who are built around not having rerolls, bro. Tyranids were army-wide fucking rerolls in 9th edition. The faction was like reroll central. It was crazy. You had just like random idiot characters everywhere who would just point at units within synaptic link range and give them rerolls. You get rerolls to hit, and you get rerolls to hit, and you get rerolls to wound. It was wild. And the range was like infinite because you could branch your synaptic link across the whole board. 9th edition was so sick, chat. Yeah, the Hive Tyrant was reroll ones. Hive Tyrant was reroll ones. There was an enhancement to give it an additional synaptic link ability, which was plus 1 to hit. So the Hive Tyrant would give out reroll ones, plus 1 to hit, plus reroll ones to hit. So you would effectively get full rerolls because it was 2s rerolling ones. And then Swarm Lord was full rerolls. And then Tyranid Primes were reroll ones to wound. So, and then if you played Behemoth, you had a psychic power for plus 1 to wound. So you could give like a 1 unit plus 1 to hit, plus 1 to wound, reroll once to hit and wound. You could give another unit full rerolls. It's fucking crazy. Tyranids were just like, everything was hyper consistent in Tyranids back in the day. Oh, they were good. Good old Tyranids. We're gonna go through a 9th edition member berries for a sec there. Feels weird if Space Wolves are going to have Gladius Task Force. They could change the army ability. I mean, they've done that for Black Templars, of course. Black Templars just don't have Oath, right? They have a different thing. They could do that for other factions. For Space Wolves explicitly, like, I think that because of the way that the army has been designed in 10th edition, I think people have kind of forgotten that Space Wolves' whole thing is combined arms. So having access to multiple effects where you're like, you know, either buff your melee or buff your ranged or whatever is extremely on brand for Space Wolves. For the longest time, Space Wolves' whole deal was that at a baseline, their unit was good in melee, and they had some good dedicated melee units, and also functional in the shooting phase. Whereas other factions like Blood Angels were always like, I only melee, fight. And Space Wolves were like played more tactically on the table. That's like totally been overwritten because of how dominant like Stormlance Thunderwolf Cavalry was in 10th edition, where it was like Space Wolves were just like, I don't know, I'm the Unga Bunga faction now, I guess, and I run a bunch of wolves at you and see what happens. But that was very contrary to how the faction was designed for ages before that. There's a little bit of fun history for you, chat. So, like, Space Wolves were the only faction with dedicated Devastator units back in the day, right? They had Long Fang squads, which are, I think, since gone the way of the dodo. But they had 6 model Devastator squads with 5 heavy weapons and a special weapon on the unit champion that in OG editions could split fire, which no one else could do. So you could take multiple different heavy weapons and you could target all your anti-infantry weapons one place and all your anti-tank weapons somewhere else. That was totally unique for Space Wolves. Space Wolves, no other faction could do that. Space Wolves are the best Devastators in the game. They also had Grey Hunter squads could take like a bunch of special unique weapons, and then they also took chain swords in addition to their guns, so they were good both at shooting and melee. And they also got the charge bonus when you charged them, which is fucking wild. Counter Assault was the name of the ability. Pretty cool! Now Space Wolves have no identity. Space Wolves' identity is weird and annoying keywords. My whole identity is that all my effects only hit certain units. I love that. What a fun time, chat. We're playing Astra Militarum now. Silly. At some point I'll do some like horror stories videos about all of the insane games of like tabletop games I played. And I played a game. It wasn't super long ago. It was in 10th edition. I played a game of a tournament. I was in the finals. I think my opponent was getting like a little in his head about stuff. And he goes to like he goes to turn 1 Deep Strike and Eradicator squad, or turn 1 Strat Reserve Eradicator squad. He's like, I have Logan Grimnar. I'm going to choose an Eradicator squad. I'm going to do that. And I was like, I think that's Space Wolf only. And he was like, excuse me? And I was like, what? It only works on Space Wolf units. He's like, well, they're on a Space Wolf unit. They're on a Space Wolf army. Like, no. Space Wolf units are the ones inside the Space Wolf supplement. They're not the whole army. And he was like, what? He had a little bit of a conniption about it. He had a bit of a meltdown. There was a meltdown happening. And I was like, I don't know what to tell you, man. I'm sorry to tell you the rules of how your army works, but you definitely can't use your abilities on your Eradicators. Like, they only work on your guys. And then, like, they had to get the TO in. The TO had to read through everything. He's like, yeah, they don't have the keyword or whatever. And he's like, but it says in my codex, if I play with the Space Wolf supplement, it represents a Space Wolves army. Like, yeah, it represents it, but it doesn't actually give them the keyword. Fucking stupid. Bad game design. Just bad and dumb game design that makes people feel bad and makes the faction feel disjointed. I do not like it. I like the models that they made in 10th edition, but I do not like the rules that they wrote. Fortunately, hopefully that will only last for a couple more months and then we'll get new supplements. Anyway, we want to talk about Tyranids. We're going to head on over to Chimera Gaming in Canada. Thousand Sons of Character Spam? Hell yeah. I am sad that the all character build is no longer functional. That was my favorite thing in Index 10th. You could just play all characters. And then because your Kabbalistic rituals were based on a point system, which counted the number of psychers you had, if you had all characters, literally all sorcerers in Thousand Sons, it was actually like a viable composition. It was fucking insane. It was like, here's 19 sorcerers. Here's what we do. Obviously, it's parasitic game design. It's actually not very good, but it is fun and cool. Let's talk about Tyranids. I want to head on over and talk about Subterranean Assault from Chimera Gaming. This list is cool and fun. I do think that I would like Subterranean Assault to be good. It's one of my favorite detachments of all time, and I don't think it's made the transition well to 11th edition. There's a very easy way they could fix it. I'll talk about this momentarily because this is a personal gripe of mine, which is that you give Raveners the ability to turn one deep strike, which they can't for some reason. Fucking Grey Knights get it with a million guns, but a Ravener unit can't build a tunnel turn one. Get fucked. So you build all the total markers. The real reason you're playing it is you get real ones to hit. That's like realistically kind of what we're doing. However, you also get like interesting strat reserve effects later on. You do also have to play Disruption, which does suck. Disruption isn't good, but like you can win. It's fine. You can win with it sometimes. So some of its matchups are really fucking dog shit terrible, but not all of them. So that's okay. Most taken your Tyranid detachment, WTC and teams. It is good for scoring. I will say, like late game, Subterranean Assault's fucking obnoxious to try to like clawback points from. It's like early game, you get guns and you get upping downing and you get repositional stuff, and it's like you can do some stuff. Late game, it's like here are my 6 secondaries. I'm going to score 15 points of them this turn and 15 points of them next turn, and there's nothing you can do about it because so much of the faction jumps around every turn. Everything's fucking jumping everywhere. So if you have an attrition to them to nothing, and they can play keep away pretty well, then late game, they're just like, there's lictors in every corner, and there's a Ravager squad over there, and there's a bunch of spore mines, and you're just like, you scored every secondary all the time. Pretty wild. So we're playing, and here's a talk, I think, is this the, oh no, this is fine. So we have Old One Eye with a Carnifex squad. It's one Carnifex, explicitly to buff Old One Eye's leadership ability. So Old One Eye gets full hit rerolls when he is leading a unit. He used to, like, this used to be fucking really annoying for him because he would, if you took one Carnifex to turn that on and your opponent killed one Carnifex, Old One Eye was like, what am I doing here? What was I doing this whole time? I guess I'll leave. And then he forgot how to reroll hits. Now, in Subterranean Assault, it was still fine because he could reroll once to hit, so you could still get value out of him. But now he gets that roll permanently as soon as you attach the Carnifex. So this one Carnifex is like 9 ablative wounds for Old One Eye, plus rerolls, plus he shoots pretty good. He's got a heavy venom cannon. He's got some crushing claws. He's got a bioplasma shot, so it's a D3 blast weapon plus another D3 3 damage blast weapon. Plus he gets the hit rerolls as well. So the Carnifex comes in, he shoots okay. He acts as a blade of wounds for Old One Eye, and Old One Eye fucks shit up with this big strength 14 melee profile. The strongest melee profile in Tyranids. Besides maybe the Norn Assimilator, I guess. We have a Lash Whip Tyranid Prime with the Hormigaunt unit. These guys are great in Subterranean Assault because they are so consistent. The Tyranid Prime gets real ones and sustains, which means he averages more hits than he starts with. And the number of times that the Tyranid Prime rolls in and like kills a tank because he rolled a couple sustained hits on his Rending Claw. He's like, I rolled a 1 and a 6. I rolled the 1 into a 6. I hit 6 times with my Rending Claw for 3 damage each. And he just clears a tank out. It's crazy. This unit's like so strong in this attachment. It also gives you mid-board control because they're fast. They're move 10, advance and charge. So these units can sort of sit in a gone-to-ground position on your deployment line, and they can threaten to the back of the mid-board objectives. So anything pushing forward, if your opponent's playing priority assets or whatever, you can just throw these Hormagaunts into the center. You can clear their screens, and you can oftentimes 2-for-1 with them. So in this detachment explicitly, this unit is so spooky, specifically because they lose the failure state where they roll a bunch of ones to hit. They just don't have that in this attachment. Turns out reroll ones is like the best attachment ability. We're in fact playing 2 of those. Sick. We have a melee bioweapon Tyranid Warrior Squad. These guys are pretty good because we can bring them out of reserve, tunnels for reserve, so we can make 7-inch charges with them. They're also, if they're on the table, if they're in a hidden position, the Tyranid Prime with Lash Whip can start at the back of unit and go to the front of unit, and it increases your threat range by about 4 inches or so. They also bring Strength 7 melee, which is a big deal here. They previously had reroll 1s to hit. This is probably the one instance where this unit actually did improve as just a raw improvement. I think in every other case, Melee bioweapon Tyranid warriors were just like massively nerfed. However, Subterranean Assault's the one place where I think not only did they improve, but I think you take them preferentially now. Because a lot of times you're making charges out of reserve anyway, so you don't really care so much about the fact that they're slow as fuck. They already have hit rerolls baked in. They get sustained hits from the Tyranid Prime, and now they wound T12 on 5s, which sounds like not that big of a deal, but for Tyranids, wounding T12 is like squeezing fucking water from a rock. It's so difficult. If you're not on hyper adapted, or you aren't playing all monsters with like rupture cannons and just like going to the casino, there's no way to deal with a Land Raider. And fortunately, melee bioweapon Tyranid warriors are there. Now the downside is in every situation outside of Subterranean Assault, they got nerfed against every other weapon profile or defensive profile in the game. However, in Subterranean Assault, they're great. They're actually sweet, which is pretty cool. Hyper Adapted Raveners ×2, just for some 5-up anti-monster vehicle. They're extremely spooky, offensive units. They can come in, they can build tunnels. They can't up themselves without a strat, but because they're borrowers, we can pay 1 command point and bring both of them back into reserve. So you can up down them relatively consistently. We then have Red Terror, again, another consistent up down, which is cool. The downside is that she's a little slow in this detachment, I found. She's mostly there for tunnel construction, and then late game she can come in and she's like kind of consistent. If she can get into synapse range, which is a little bit difficult, the downside is that she's only strength 7, so she has a tough time wounding T4. However, she's hitting on 2s, reeling 1s. Oh, my cats are fighting. That was a weird noise from the corner of my room. If you can get her into synapse range, she goes to strength 8, so she wins C4 on 2s. I think there's like an argument to play Red Terror in other detachments as well, explicitly, because like in Vanguard Onslaught, for example, she gets advanced in charge, so she's able to clear walls very easily. The downside is Red Terror's base is fucking enormous, so you do have a little bit of trouble actually like getting to grips with those units that you actually want to attack. I don't know. I've seen mixed results with Red Terror inside this detachment. However, here's a cool thing you can do. If you are trying to enable charges from things like the Hyper Adapted Raveners or the Melee Warriors, they have to roll 7-inch charges if they come out of a tunnel. You can build a tunnel with the Red Terror, then bring in all of these guys from those tunnels to get outside 6 of your target. You then use a stratagem in the charge phase to give rerolls to the Red Terror, which projects it as an aura 6 inches around. So now you have 7-inch rerollable charges on all of your aggressive melee stuff. At the end of the phase, Red Terror just leaves, just goes back into reserve and enables doing it again. So you don't need to pre-construct a tunnel to then be able to deliver the monster that you're projecting the aura with, which is oftentimes what happens, because it doesn't matter if Red Terror fails her charge or not, because she's always just going to go back in reserve and do it again the next turn. So I don't know. It's nice. It's nice to have. We've got Swarmlord, who can be delivered very easily by tunnels, which is great. We have a Biovore to make some secondaries do happen and stuff. 1 Ravener squad for Uppy Downy. Von Ryan's Leaper squad, because they're basically free now. Look at that points value. That's crazy. Plus 2 units of 3 Zoanthropes. So because the Nero Tyrant got, in my opinion, inexplicably nerfed, people don't take it anymore. It was like on the cusp of playability at whatever it was previously, 115, I think. And because every Tyranid player took Zoanthropes, because Tyranids have such a problem with T12, this always happens with Tyranids. The 10th edition Tyranid Codex is so poorly written that you have to rely on very specific tools in order to make it viable. Those are things like, past the day, it was Neurolictors, because every Tyranid synergy procced off having a battle shock thing, and Neurolictors could provide consistent battle shock. So the Games Workshop design team, in their glorious and illimitable wisdom, looked at every Tyranid list and said, all these Tyranid lists are playing 2 to 3 Neurolictors. We will nerf the Neurolictor massively, which just killed Tyranids as a faction. Zoanthropes are kind of the same thing, where you're like looking at heavy vehicles and you're trying to contort your way to find a way to kill them. We're taking Carnifexes, or Old One Eye with 1 Carnifex. We're taking Hive Guard. We're like trying to take the Shock Cannon Hive Guard in the hope that our target doesn't either have Armor of Contempt or isn't a monster. Like, if you hit a T12 monster, these guys are literally worthless, less than worthless. However, like maybe if we hit like a Land Raider, but it's like a Bastion Task Force Land Raider, so it doesn't have Armor of Contempt, maybe we can do some damage to it. You're trying so hard to find any way to fight these things that you had to take this bad unit of fucking Zoanthropes with a Neurotyrant. And so they nerfed the Eurotyrant, and everyone's like, fuck yeah, I'm going home. So now you just play tiny units of Zoanthropes because they're cheap. You don't necessarily need to be able to like put all of the stratagems on one thing, because previously you would bring them out of reserve, you would give them sustained hits. They were hitting on 2s, rolling 1s. It was consistent hit roll, but then you would wound on 4s or whatever. And sometimes you'd give your opponent 2 wounds. 1 would go through. You do 4 damage. Cool. That was 350 points in my army. So now people are like, fuck it. If the Neurotyrant's being nerfed, I'm just going to play little Zoanthrope units because they're cheap. And I'm just going to bring them out of bug holes, give my shitty 4+ save expensive units a 6+ invuln, and then just be able to consistently shoot gunshots at people. Whereas otherwise I'm like going out of my way to try to baby this big giant unit that costs 1 million points. I could just throw these guys around, and if they kill something, it's great, and if they don't kill something, it's whatever. My opponent has to dedicate shooting to kill them because they're a 4+ invuln save. They're not the easiest thing to remove. And if they don't, then I'll just get to shoot again. I'll get to try it again. So for 90 points, the Zoanthropes are kind of a steal. It also follows into the general theme of this detachment, and probably one of the reasons that it's being played very widely in team formats, which is that its scoring is so consistent, right? You just have so many units. We have double Raveners, we have double Hyper-Adapted Raveners, we have Red Terror, who's, if you don't, there's no reason Red Terror should ever be attacked before you want her to commit into melee. The Red Terror literally is uninteractable from your opponent. She will just continuously make tunnels, and she will score secondaries, and that's it. That's what's happening. Unless you need to keep her on the table to do a score or to attack someone, she's just jumping in and out. So by the end of the game, we have all these little tiny units running around. Once your opponent's screens are dead because you've thrown multiple units of fucking tier deprives with lash whips into them, then suddenly you just have this like total board control because you're able to just jump units around the flanks really effectively. I think this is cool. This is a very technical list, and I think it's rad. What do I think of Shock Cannon Hive Guard? Like I said, I think they're good at dealing with vehicles in explicitly the circumstances where your opponent isn't playing monsters and your opponent doesn't have a 2+ save with Armor of Contempt. Which means they are, for their points, they are good into vehicle targets. The combination here is that we're going to use... there's my gun. We're going to use the Shock Cannon profile. It hits on 2s, or it's 2 shots, it hits on 3s. We're going to give them reroll 1s from the detachment ability, and we're going to give them Enflating Emergence so they get sustained hits, ignore cover. So they hit on 3s. If you don't AOC them, you're saving probably on 3s or 4s, and they're anti-vehicle 2+ with 12 shots. They should get 11 or so hits as the average. They should hand your opponent 9 or so saves. If you're saving on 4s, you probably take 12 to 15 damage. If you're saving on 3s, you take whatever, like 9. If you're saving on 2s, you take almost nothing. So get fucked, I guess. So they're cheap, but they're extremely...
At Great Adam donated $5 through Super Chat. I'm teammates with Warlock Guy. He ran only one Warlock Conclave with his Guardians. Played next to him all day in Boise plus practice games.
Great Adam D. Hey, thank you for the Super Chat. That's good information to know. Yeah, the people I talked to had mixed reports. They said that they thought he played the extra Warlock unit, but couldn't confirm it. Which is, of course, that's like, that means nothing. I mean, that means that oh well. But if you watched him play all weekend and he only had one Warlock unit, then that's good enough for me, to be honest. I think otherwise it has been, at least in my opinion, sufficiently determined that his list submission was a mistake. Now, I do think that it would not be unreasonable for the judges to penalize him for not checking the list that he uploaded, because he did upload a list that literally said he had extra units in it. But, that's up to them. So, I think that's fine. That would be like, you would like dock victory points or something. You would like take his battle ready away, and maybe that changes the game result or whatever. I don't think it's necessarily worth like fully zeroing that or whatever. But thank you for the super chat. Appreciate that, bud. Yeah, so I think the Shock Cannon Hive Guard, they're good because of their points value. If they were more expensive, it would be difficult to justify them because they are only good in such specific circumstances. But sub 200 points for a unit that could potentially one-shot a vehicle, that's not too bad. I'll buy that for $1, right? They're also like, they're okay into heavy infantry. They're not like amazing, but like the AP1 really hurts. But like, shoot them at just a bunch of whatever fucking heavy intercessors or something. Like, I'll kill 3 or 4. It's not terrible. It's not that bad. Plus, then you're doing that. They Overwatch pretty well. They're like kind of a spooky Overwatch threat. If they're controlling an objective, they get a 4+ Overwatch. So like you have to consider, like, continuously be considering that as you're moving around. Not that they're necessarily going to do it, but it's like a threat you can provide to your opponent so that they can consider it. And then sometimes if your opponent runs like 2 Terminators at them, they'll be like, fuck it, I'll just roll 6. Probably 6 hits, 4 wounds, hand you a bunch of saves, see what happens. I might kill you. Who knows? So yeah, I think it's reasonable. Unfortunately for me, chats, I have 18 Hive Guard and they all have fucking Impaler cannons. God damn it. Why? Why has the Impaler cannon fallen so far? It used to have an equivalent profile to a Leman Russ battle cannon. It was so silly. Oh man. I know someone in the chat is immediately going to be like, if you play them, I was about to say, Paul Gurney, you beat me to it. Somebody was going to say, oh, it's fine. No one will know. I will know, chat. Me. I'll know. I'll look at them. I'll be like, that's not a shock cannon. The shock cannon has the little arc and the nibbly thing on the front. The Impaler cannon has all the spikes. Best in slot weapon changes every edition. Yeah, there's no way you can convince me that's not by design. Absolutely no way. Yeah, there used to be a fallback or there used to be the equivalent of a fallback and shoot strat. It was Tunnel Nexus could pull you out of melee, which is very funny. So mysticism was doing, yeah. What would happen too is like I would go to a TO and be like, is it okay if I play with these Hive Guard? They aren't technically modeled correctly, and they would be like, I have no fucking idea what that unit even is. I'll be like, okay. Let's talk about some more Tyranids before we start to ramp things up here. We're going to head on over to the Protect Ya Neck GT, and there's a couple reasons that I want to talk about this. One of them being that this is kind of emblematic of what we were talking about with the weird list export stuff. So this is a combination of Crusher Stampede and Talons of the Norn Queen. I'm going to level with you, chat. I don't understand how these lists work. I tried them and I was like, this, I hate this. This fucking sucks. I don't get it. But kudos to everyone who could make them do stuff. I was just being shot at by things and all the Tyranid fucking monsters were dying. And I was like, they can't be hidden. They're just in the open. They're just getting blown up. I don't get it. They're not that hard to kill. Maybe I'm stupid. In fact, I probably am stupid. So because we're playing Talons of the Norn King, we get to play Take and Hold, so we can put Norns in the middle of the table and just like say go. We are running. So this is where the list export's really weird. This whole section is extra. So this list export says that into 2,000 points, we get 4 Carnifexes. This is 2 Carnifexes and 6 Tyrant Guard. This is 3 Tyrant Guard. If you look down here, 3 Tyrant Guard and 2 Carnifexes. The section at the top is just wrong. These are ghost models. These are not included in the points value. So this is like the bug that this can run into. This one's even weirder because it mentions them as attached units, but doesn't specify their attachment, which I don't know how that works. Because I don't know how you have an attached unit with no attachment in them. That's fucking wild. Obviously, what this should be is Old One-Eye with 2 Carnifexes and the Swarmlord with 3 Tyrant Guard. And those are attached to the units that are included late, like earlier in the list. I have no idea how you get a list export that puts 2 unattached units that are not otherwise included in your list at the top. That's fucking wild, dude. It's not good. That's not good and is in fact bad. That's bad list export. Not wrong. Well, you'll get spritzed with water. So we've got Old One Eye with 2 Carnifexes. These guys have Spine Banks and Death Spitters, so all guns all the time. The double Death Spitters shoot 12 times per model, so you're shooting 24 times. Plus, they have the same profile, which is cool, as the Bioplasma, which means you get to roll them all in one single attack group. So it's 2d3 plus 2x Blast, plus 24 Death Spitter shots. All of those get full hit rerolls. Sometimes you play these guys with a Hive Tyrant and they get sustained hits, but we didn't do that this time. We just played Swarmlord. We then have an Exocrine. We then have a Maliceptor. We have a Norn Assimilator with a Synapto Prescient, so we can get a 4+ invuln save. We have a Norn Emissary with Destabilizing Predation, so its gun gets fucking precision. Hilarious. We have a Screamer Killer, 1 Acid Spray Tyrannifex, so we can run it to the center and it can clear utility stuff, which is great. This guy's a good trading piece early, so your opponent has to commit into him. He doesn't want to take Overwatches from it, because the Tyrannifex's Overwatch is disgusting. And you can kill like 2 to 3 little 5-model units that would otherwise be scoring your opponent points for the entirety of the game. This list has a difficult time actually like consistently killing those little units. We then have the Tyrant Guard unit for the Swarmlord to deal with. Now, the Tyrant Guard unit is very interesting because they will buff the Swarmlord. So, first of all, well, a monster unit from your army is at starting strength, which includes the Tyrant Guard because they attach in with the Swarmlord, and Swarmlord is monster keyworded. You add +2 objective control characteristic to the models in that unit. Now, because it's a multi-model unit, they are automatically at starting strength until you lose your first Tyrant Guard. So you have to take at least 4 damage before one of your Tyrant Guard loses that before the Tyrant Guard unit loses that +2 OC. Now, that's not the case for the other, I guess it's the case for the Carnifexes, but not for the other monsters, who typically will eat like a bolt pistol shot, take a random wound, and then lose +2 OC and gain +1 to hit. These guys have to lose a whole ass Tyrant Guard to lose +2 OC. In addition, while the other effects of the Detachment ability affect Tyranid monster models in your unit, that one specifically, for whatever reason, affects the whole unit. So in the early game, this unit of Tyrant Guard is presenting 14 objective control, just by itself, because you have 3 times 3, because they're OC 1 + 2 each, plus 3 + 2 for a Swarmlord, which is 5, so 14 total. So like in the early game, when your opponent's trying to out OC you on the midboard and you haven't put your Norns there yet, this little Tyrant Guard unit can just run in and take the whole objective away by themselves. Fucking crazy. Then, as soon as your opponent attacks them and they lose a Tyrant Guard, if the Swarmlord lives, suddenly he's permanently +1 to hit and wound, even if all the Tyrant Guard are dead. Previously, if you had this guy by himself, once the Tyrant Guard would die, the Swarmlord would split into his own unit, and he would recalculate all of this stuff. So he would actually gain +2 OC once the Tyrant Guard were dead. Now he just gets the +1 to wound for the whole game forever. So he's more difficult to kill. There's a little bit of an interesting interaction with like the Tyrant Guard being able to hide. So if you have them at the front of an objective feature, like one of those long, skinny ones, the Tyrant Guard can hide in the front, and Swarmlord can be behind it in the back, and the unit can gain presence on the table without being shot at, which is kind of cool. Like the Swarmlord can be behind a train feature, the Tyrant Guard could be in the train feature, and then you can like move and charge off the Tyrant Guard in the front of the unit. So you can actually gain a little bit more movement than you could previously. So a lot of benefits of taking Tyrant Guard these days, especially because of this stuff. Now, it does force Swarmlord to take extra battle shock checks. Not that big of a deal because he has Synapse, but it is worth noting. However, +1 to wound on his attacks is really strong because he has 1 million twin-linked attacks. He's strength 10, so it's a tough time going into high toughness stuff, but if he's +1 to wound, he can wound most things on 4s or 3s, and then full reroll everything, so he's very consistent. Even if your opponent imposes hit modifiers on them, he has +1 to hit, so it's good. Otherwise, this army gets shot a lot, so I don't know. I guess I've personally had bad experiences with like all the monsters, but some armies probably can't deal with it, so that's pretty good. The Tyranid list has bugs, yeah, indeed. Tank shotgun and taking self-damage to get buffs. That's pretty good, I guess. It does require you to spend a command point, and this list is a little bit... I guess it's actually not that low on command points because it doesn't have any stratagems. Crusher Stampede has probably one of like just the worst suites of stratagems in the entire game. It does have its own version of Tank Shock for some reason. We have Swarm Guided Salvos, which is ignore cover for a monster unit. So you can give ignore cover to the Carnifexes, I guess. So when they hit on 5s, that's not too bad. And then all of these other ones, Savage Roar is the one that's like kind of good. It gives you -1 to be hit in melee. But they have no defense against ranged attacks. They do have Go Through Walls. Where is it? Untrammeled Ferocity. Go Through Walls, but you can Battle Shock yourself. Love that. Cool. I love to spend a command point to Battle Shock myself. Go Through Walls is good for these guys, of course, but the problem is that the big bases sometimes do have trouble maneuvering around the light terrain features on side of a terrain area. So, like, it's not perfect in 11th edition. Whereas 10th edition, it was like, I go through the wall and the wall is the one thing, so it's fine. But now that walls are broken into like multiple smaller pieces, it's actually not that big of, in some cases, going through walls isn't enough to get you to charge you want. And then you just get blown up. I don't know. So, yeah, it is what it is. Anyway, chat, that's Tyranids for you. A lot of interesting stuff to discuss today. I do have a game in 20 minutes, though, so I'm going to hop off in a moment here. But I want to thank everyone for coming and hang out with me. If you want more discussion about stuff, first of all, come hang out with me over on Twitch. I do have my Twitch command set up. I'm very happy I was able to do that. Twitch.tv/TacticalTortoise For a second, it took a second. I thought it wasn't going to work. I was like, great. Twitch.tv/TacticalTortoise. I'll be live there in 25 or 30 minutes or so. We're going to play versus Genestealer Cults. That's kind of sweet. I haven't played Genestealer Cults this edition yet, so excited to see how that goes. Non-zero chance I get burned alive, but we'll see. And otherwise, I'll see you guys around. Oh yeah, we'll be live later this evening, 8 p.m. US Eastern, or 8:30 p.m. US Eastern time. So about 6 hours from now. That's going to be another T5S2 Invitational game. That is the T5S2 Invitational Group D Finals 1. So assuming that Isaac Terada wins, he is officially out of the group stage and makes it to eliminations. If he loses, the players get an option to play a second rematch game. We'll see how it goes. I think it's going to be a spicy one. It's Necrons versus Grey Knights. So please come hang out with me with that on that one tonight. We had a ton of finals games scheduled for some reason this evening. So I have another one that's going to be recorded and uploaded on my second channel later. And there's also, I think, just a T5S2 pod finals game that will probably be streamed into the Discord. So lots and lots of finals games to watch if you want to hang out. But yeah, I'm going to be hanging out over there this evening. Please come hang out with me for that. Thanks for watching all the way to the end. Keep it classy, folks, and I will see you later on.